On this episode, we'll look back to the Healthy Church Summit and how you can lead for the long haul. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm Kendall Connor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jess Moore. How are you today, Jess?
Hey, Kendall. I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm feeling really good. We're just coming off of this last Healthy Church Summit. I'm still feel like I'm riding the high of that event, right? It was a lot of fun.
It was so fun. I think it was probably our most powerful event as far as the
I
content,
think
and
so.
I'm
Yeah.
super excited to dive into this. This is going to be good retro for us.
I'm really hoping that everyone who is listening to this podcast, everyone who turns this episode on today, has heard of this event.
Yes.
If you have, because we've had it, we've been talking about it quite a bit. We've had for the past few episodes, we've been leading up to this event. But in case you have not heard about it before, for all of you at home, go ahead right now. I give full. You have full blessing. Leave the app that you're in where you're watching or listening to this, and go check out healthychurchsummit.com just to
Yeah.
see what we're talking about. But I want to dive in a little bit to this today because there just was so much great content
Yeah.
that I feel like I could talk about this for a week. I've been
Hmm.
sharing this event with everyone in my church, all of our leaders and
Yeah.
volunteers, and we're calling up friends that are serving in ministry. I was just like, you've got to listen to this content because it's so good.
Agreed. Agreed. And I mean, you kind of pointed people in the right direction, but in the very small chance that people don't know what we're talking about. This is a virtual conference, right?
Yes.
And so we had speakers, we had breakout sessions. And so we're going to kind of recap some of that today, but it's now available on demand. So Kendall was saying
That's
head
right.
to healthychurchsummit.com and you can still enjoy all of this. So hopefully we get you wanting to go watch it today with this conversation.
I'm thinking about, we haven't talked about this a lot, but one of my favorite things about a virtual conference. So the live conference was you could watch that online, and now it's available on demand.
Yep.
All of the recordings, all the main sessions, the keynotes, all of the interviews, all of the breakouts, all of it's on. You know what I really appreciate about that? It's that not there's so many conferences that I see popping up around the country. There was one just a couple weeks ago that was in Chicago. And I was just thinking, like, man, there's just as much as I want to be at that conference. It just
Yeah.
was not in our budget right now for our
Totally.
church.
Right.
It was like the travel time was such a to do. Like, I don't like
Hmm.
I personally have got so much with kids' ball games and things
Right.
like that. It
Tis
just
the
isn't a reality.
Yeah.
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 Graduations and
Maycember.
all these different, yeah. It just is not a reality for everyone to travel and go to
Yeah,
different places, and so I
exactly.
can, legitimately appreciate that, these online conference that format works really well for busy
Yes.
ministry leaders, I think.
Well, and it's free. I feel like there's some, like, conferences, not necessarily
Mm,
leadership conferences, but, like, for work,
yes,
like HubSpot,
yes,
for example, has an
right.
incredible conference, but my gosh, I cannot afford to do that,
Yeah,
So this
a
one's free,
absolutely.
it's on
Yep,
demand, you can watch it whenever you want. Sit down with your teams and watch this because it's literally so practical, right? So, yes, agreed.
right.
This is just a gift. This is a gift that we get to be a small part
That
of.
we
This is awesome.
Yeah, I love that, and, kudos to Ministry Brands to having the vision for this. Our
Yeah.
team, has been doing this. I think it was our 7th
Yep.
Healthy Church Summit. Does that sound right?
I think so, yeah.
And so 7 times we've been able to, pour all of the work and all of the
Mhm.
energy and all of the dollars into making this a reality. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I love that Ministry Brands has that heart to be able to help these church leaders. And,
Agreed.
overall, I mean, seeing how it all has gone, it's just been amazing. Amazing to be along for the ride.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to jump in on this. We get to review, kind of hit some of the highlights from the event.
Mhm.
But before we jump into that, I just want to remind everybody who's listening or watching at home today, we want to make sure that you don't miss any of the resources that we put out like these
Mhm.
conversations to help you along as you're serving and trying to build that healthy ministry right there in your community. And so hit that follow button. We want to make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're enjoying today.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's jump in. So, for those who may have not got an opportunity to check it out yet, one of the things that we got to do this time around for the summit that was I thought was just an amazing upgrade was
Uh-huh.
that we had some live in-person keynote speakers.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
one of the first one for the day was Pastor Arthur James. Now, he's been on our podcast before. He's kinda had a great episode with us before and been able to share, but this was different. I mean, being
Mhm.
able to having him there on stage, and Jess, you and I, we got to interview him
Yeah.
after his talk. But what was cool is I know, for the overall theme of the summit this time around, it was leading for the long haul.
Mhm. Yeah.
And as a part of that was burnout,
Right.
we know that there's so many ministry leaders that are out there that they're feeling tired.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
be honest. Can we
Mhm.
be honest, right? A lot
Yeah.
of ministry leaders are tired and, they're trying to do their best in their ministries, but they're
Mhm.
just worn out and
Yeah.
they're, looking for, a way to kind of catch their breath. And so, um, Arthur James, his talk was all about keeping your pilot lit,
Mhm.
5 strategies for avoiding burnout in
That's right.
ministry.
That's right. Yep.
I don't know about you. When you heard this talk, before we jump to the content, Jess, how did you feel about it?
Um, I think the first word that pops into mind was just, like, actionable. It wasn't just
Mm,
talking about burnout. It was
yeah.
so I love a teaching moment. Like, our pastor does a good job at being a teacher, and I feel like
Mm,
that's so much of what Arthur did. Like, he brought his heart and his experience, but it was
yes.
practical. He gave steps that you can follow to avoid
Yes.
burnout, which is just so in my mind, I'm like, "Yes, I know, we understand the problem. Tell me how to fix it." And he did
Tell me how
that,
to
so that
fix
was
it.
great.
Yeah.
And let me back up really quick to just sit on the topic for a minute. I remember, Kendall, when we were trying to figure out the topic for this and, like, what direction we were gonna go.
Yeah.
When you brought this up, immediately in my mind, I was like, "Yes," because you and I get to have these conversations all the time, and the
Yes.
amount of people and guests who at the end of when we ask, like, what's one thing you would say to church leaders? The
Yes.
amount of guests that we have that say, like, "Don't give up. You're not alone." Like, these types of words of encouragement
Yes.
and trying to, like, "It's okay. You can do it." That tells us, you and I mean, statistics for sure. Arthur
Yes.
brought statistics into his, talk, but just in the conversations that you and I have had, this is
Yes.
such a real issue, and so I think
100%.
hopefully this summit was a blessing to anyone who attended and anyone who's gonna listen on demand, but really truly, like, this is coming from I think this is just our most applicable, powerful,
Yes.
emotionally uplifting summit that we did. So back to Arthur's talk, practical is the one word that I think comes to
Yeah.
mind right away, like, applicable. Use it, do it, like, yeah.
Well, I even love, one of the things that I wanna call out from his talk was that he defined burnout from the
Mhm.
get-go, and I
Right.
thought that was helpful
Yep.
because not e you know, everyone may have different thoughts on exactly what that is, but
True.
he defined a burnout in a way that I thought made a lot of sense, and he said that it's when one stops enjoying life
Mm,
and begins enduring life. So
right.
going from enjoying to enduring, it says
Yeah.
to the point that they quit positions, people, and practices.
Mm,
And I just, even just seeing that simple phrase of going from enjoying life to enduring life, I feel like that immediately I thought of seasons of my own life when
right.
things have become too much,
Right,
right?
right, right. Yeah.
And I know that on the other side of maybe even this call today on the other
Mhm.
side of this episode today, there may be some folks that are saying, well, maybe it has been a minute
Right.
since I've
Yeah.
enjoyed this.
It puts
Um,
words to what would otherwise
mhm,
maybe just be a feeling or like a
yes.
something that you're experiencing, but it puts words to it that you're like, "Yes, that's what I'm feeling." Or,
He went on
"I'm not quite
Yeah.
there yet," you know?
Yeah, well, and he went on to say, 5 signs of the build up to burnout. So you said, maybe I'm not there yet, maybe I'm kind of leaning in that
Right.
direction.
Yeah.
He says that, these signs are feelings of overwhelm,
Mhm.
frequent thoughts of quitting ministry or your mandate,
Mhm.
a mindset of it's something that I've got to do rather than it's something that I get to do
That one's
when it
so good.
comes to serving in those things. Yeah, yeah. And, another one was frequent feelings of failure or inadequacy.
Mhm.
And the last one was that you're preaching or using your gift without passion. And so you're showing up, you're still doing the stuff, but the
Sure.
passion is just gone.
Yeah.
All of those things, I mean, I feel like those are such realities, right? And like they're small things, but again, hearing them out loud, I feel like it kind of just draws a lot of, like it makes those little things start clicking in your
Yes.
head.
Yes. Well, and I've said this before, but, like, we love a quiz. We love understanding which Disney
Mhm.
princess we are. So, like, I think anything where you can go through and, like,
Yes.
self-evaluate, but it's a guided evaluation, and
Yes.
I think that is just so actionable. Like I said, like, it's just so practical.
It is. So something that he did, I mentioned that the name of his talk was 5 strategies for avoiding burnout in
Mhm.
ministry. So
Mhm.
I wanna make sure that you have the opportunity to go and check out the full talk from Arthur James. And so we're
Yeah.
not gonna give you all of those strategies today, but I do wanna call out a couple of them. So even if you were to apply just these couple of strategies, I feel like it's gonna go a long way.
Mhm.
So the first strategy that Pastor Arthur he pointed out, he says if you're trying to avoid that burnout in ministry, strategy number one was to make room for margin in your life.
Mm.
I love that he gave the example. I'm trying to think of the joke that he said the other day. He said, "I grew up. I'm from the 1900s," which just
Yes.
I think I like spit out my drink in that moment when he
Yeah.
said that because I was
Yeah.
like, "Yep, that was yes, me too.
I was like,
I'm
"He's
from the
so old."
1900s."
Oh, wait.
Oh,
I
wait,
am
that's me
also
too.
from the 1900s. That's right. Yes.
But he talked about when he was writing cursive, like, as in grade school, right? Like, he was
Yeah.
like, your teacher told him, like, "You have to stay out of the margins. You have to make
Yes,
sure that you
yes,
have the
yes.
margins on the side of your paper."
Mhm.
And, I love hearing that because, of course, you hear the word margin. But knowing that you kinda do have to keep
Yeah.
those places in your life, have that space in your life that you don't cross, those lines that you don't cross in terms of
Mhm.
your time, the amount of time that you're, pouring into, there's only just so many hours in the day, so many
Exactly.
days in the week, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a difference too between, like, boundaries and margin are similar, but I think he helps you kinda break that down too to understand, like, margin is more structural, boundaries is
Mm,
emotional, right? So I think there
yeah.
was a good call out on how to do that because that's a confusing one for me. I'm like, is this do I need to draw a boundary here or, uh, juggling all the things, being a mom,
Yeah,
working,
right.
everything. I'm a taxi driver right now in this particular season, chef, housekeeper, all the things. Anyway, I think that was a good that was a good takeaway for me personally. I was like, "Ah, okay, these are different and you need both."
Well, and the principle of Sabbath comes into this thing, and like you want to make sure that there's room in your life for rest and time
Yes.
that you can
Yes,
be
yes,
off.
yes.
One principle that he shared as a part of the strategy for making room for margin in your life was he calls it scheduling time on. And
Mhm.
I love that he says this phrase because, we hear make margin in your life and you're like, okay, well, I need to take a day off or I need to be off sometimes. But I love that he rephrased it and he said, I try to schedule time on so that I'm not saying this is time off of what my main thing is. I'm making sure that I have time on for the things that he says brings delight.
Yeah.
And so he shared things like he schedules time on being able to be on the golf course or being there with his family or spending time with
Mhm.
his grandkids, all those
Mhm.
different things.
Right.
And I thought that was a fun way to just remind that like those things are important. Sometimes we think like, okay, I've got to schedule time off. Those things are less. Those
Right.
things aren't as
It's
important.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, saying I'm gonna make time to schedule on the things that matter. I'll say it like this,
Yeah.
matter the most in your life.
Absolutely. It's a
Right?
little word shift, but it's a
Yeah.
perspective shift that really makes a difference. So, yeah, completely agree.
It makes me wonder for all of our listeners today, like, is that something that you regularly do? So, okay, like if you say date night with your spouse is important, do you schedule that time on? How
Mm.
about time with your kids or maybe time with your family? Is that something that you put into your schedule? Uh,
Yes.
Or is it something that just, every now and then you just find that time, like you have a random afternoon, that you just could squeeze in and it's the last thing?
Yeah.
Whatever those delights are in your life, finding that time to schedule those times um, can just be a great principle. And I feel like we've even talked about that a few times on the
Yeah.
podcast.
I think it's a leadership it's like a critical piece to lead well, I think
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
general, especially because we're very rarely a leader in just one area of our life,
There you go.
If
Yep.
you've got a family, really, truly, even if you're single, like, you're the leader of your life outside of work
That's
just as
right.
much as you are
That's
inside
right.
of work, and so I think it's especially in our culture today where there's this, like, constant pressure and celebration of being busy. I think it's
Mm,
so important that,
yep.
my goodness, if we have to schedule stuff anyway, you might as well schedule the stuff that you wanna do and need to do that pours back into you, right? Your delights,
Yes.
those need to have a place and to what you just said, a priority
That's right.
so that, we don't work to live. No, we don't live
We
to
don't
work.
live to work.
We
There we
don't
go.
live to work. We work to live. There it is. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's across the board. That's probably one of my biggest takeaways. Across everything. Weirdly, like my personal calendar, I have to also have it on my work calendar. So one's an Outlook, one's an Apple.
Yes.
But everything that I put into my personal calendar, I put onto my
Yes.
work calendar as well because if I don't, we
100%.
had we met with Tim a few weeks ago, and he was talking about those big rocks in the sand, right? Like, I'm
Yes.
putting those big rocks into my work calendar yesterday. My son graduated 8th grade. That was a big rock for me. I put that in
Yes.
there, and all the other
Yes.
everything else can trickle in, but that one
That's
was
right.
non-negotiable for me. So, yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
really important piece.
That's it. It's I feel like anyone who's listening to this today, it's like one of those, at least it was for me, it's like one of those duh moments,
Right.
but at the same time, it's a good reminder because even though
Mhm.
sometimes we know these things,
Yeah.
we don't always put them
Right.
directly into practice, right?
Right. Well, and it's a remedy. That was the
Mm,
positioning of it. It's a remedy for avoiding burnout. So it's like, yes,
that's
yes, I
right.
know it's a good thing to do. And he's like, well, it's beyond that. Like, if you find yourself
Yes.
experiencing these symptoms, here's the medicine.
Yes.
Right. So
That's
it,
right.
it made it like, oh, maybe I need to prioritize this more so that I don't
Yes.
burn out, so that I can lead for the long haul.
Very good. I mean, it's such a good reminder. The next strategy that I want to share from Pastor Arthur's talk was he said, if you're trying to avoid burnout in ministry, he said to strip yourself of the superhero syndrome, is what he
Yeah.
calls it. And
Yeah.
he said, so often, even though we know that all the things that we do are from the power that God gives us, like we're walking in authority from Christ, but
Hmm.
sometimes it feels like as a man that you have to be Superman, or he said for the
Hmm.
ladies, you feel like you have to be Wonder Woman. You have to, swoop in there and save the day because
Hmm.
that's just what you do. You're going to be that person that shows up for everybody. You're going to be that person that's holding it all together. You're going to be the one that is, swooping in to make sure that everything is fixed and everything goes perfectly. But really, you have to set that aside and know that
Hmm.
that is not sustainable, right? It's
Right.
not something you can't always be that one that is
Hmm.
going to save the day. And really, we have to release ourselves of that pressure that we
Yeah.
have to wear the cape, right? That we
Very
have to be
much.
the one that's always. And I love the way that he put it, though. He said, if we can move away from us having to be Superman or Wonder Woman, have to be the one that saves the day all the time. And he said he believed for some, I think he said he said you
The
needed to turn it
Justice
into a
League.
team effort, the Justice League, right?
Yes,
Get some
exactly.
other people to try to carry the weight
Yes.
sometimes.
Yeah, Kendall and I obviously went back and we're looking through engagement during the summit, and there was a lot of people that empathized with this particular
Hmm.
portion. That I think
Yes.
this is something that resonates with so many people because as church leaders, a lot of times we're operating with volunteers, and it is
Yeah.
difficult to count
Yeah.
on other people. And sometimes there's this like guilt of like, well, I can't put this whole thing on them, right? They
That's right.
can't carry this whole load because they're not getting paid for it. So that's where the temptation I think slips in. I think people recognize that there is a limit to their capability, but it's
Yes.
like, well, who else is going to do it? I'm the only one getting
Yes.
paid to do this, right? And so there was a lot of people resonating with this particular portion of Arthur's
Yes.
conversation. So hopefully you get a chance to watch the full talk, but there was so much valuable encouragement to say, like,
Yes.
listen, y'all, like, they're gifted. Let them be gifted. Let them carry this. Let the God put these
Yes.
people in your circle for the season that you're in to be able to, use their gifts to help move
That's right.
your church forward. So it was really great.
And this kind of goes into our next strategy that Pastor Arthur mentioned, and that is trust and tag your team.
Hmm.
The truth is just as you're alluding to, Jess, is like God put people there and around you. And
Hmm.
sometimes it feels like, one of the stats that he shares is from some Barna research that talks about how many pastors and ministry leaders feel alone
Yep.
when they're serving in ministry. And the truth is that I genuinely believe that God will bring the people into your life, into your
Hmm.
church, into your ministry
Hmm.
that are there for that specific season. And
Yep.
sometimes we just have to remind ourselves and even stretch ourselves and stretch our
Mhm.
thinking because they're not going to show up as um, the A plus leader, right?
Right.
Like we have to spend time. We talked about this on another episode. You have to spend that time developing them.
Right.
But there's also so much goodness that can come from that relationship that you're building with them, even
Yes.
as you're pulling them up
Hmm.
into rising into that leader. But I genuinely believe that God puts the people around us that we need in those specific seasons. The question is who, if you're thinking in your own leadership, in your own ministry in this season, look around and say, man, who am I being a good steward of?
Yes.
The people that that God's put around me. Who can I trust
Yes.
and tag and invest in this
Hmm.
season so
Hmm.
that I don't have to always be Superman, Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah. It's discipleship. It's discipleship.
Yep.
Like if that,
Yep.
and that's the most important, that's what you're there for. That's what the church is
Yes.
there for. So yeah, we talked about this with Mac, but it's like if that's become, if you're in a place that you're so reactive in your ministry that you're just like, oh, we just need a
Yes.
warm body to do this thing, then yeah, the enemy's gonna slip in, man, and that's a slippery slope. So I think just being super intentional, being aware of who's
Yes.
around you, thanking God for who's around you, recognizing
Yes.
gifts and pouring into them. The loneliness too was a big piece that he talked about, and so that solves for that as well, right? And that's biblical. That's the
That's
Acts
right.
church. So I think, yeah, it was great.
It's good. You also you said there, you mentioned Mac's episode, and as of when this episode releases, we've already recorded that, but it's not released yet. So that's a
Oh,
little bit of
oh, a
a
teaser.
preview. There's a little
Yeah.
bit of a teaser
I
of
didn't
an
realize
episode
it
that's gonna
hadn't
be coming
released
up
yet.
with
I love it.
Mac Lake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good
So,
one.
so that is gonna be a good one. So stay tuned to be looking for that episode. Uh, so I love that we got to give a little bit of a preview here. I feel like we've only covered, 10%. We've only scratched the
I
surface
know.
of this talk. And so we can't do it justice. Definitely you're going to want to go back and check out that talk from Pastor Arthur James.
Mhm.
I do want to shift a little bit because we had another great keynote speaker
Oh, yeah.
and that was Dr. Jason Young.
Mhm.
Now, I'm thinking back there on the shelf. I think I've got a couple of his books. He's got so many great books on ministry, areas of like hospitality,
Mhm.
areas of raising your team, so many good things. So his talk it talks a little bit about burnout as well,
Right.
and he even has a book on burnout. But we planned this event, we planned for Jason to be able to take this beyond just the leader, the
Right.
individual, and then spread that across the ministry. So for the
Mhm.
people who are serving in your ministry, your staff, your team, your leaders, your volunteers. And so I love that we got to kind of talk through some of those things with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, they built so well on each other, right? Those 2
Mhm.
keynotes, and I mean, full disclosure, Kendall, I don't even know if I can share this, but we hadn't seen or heard their talks before they talked. And so they both use the analogy of fire, which I thought was
Yes.
incredible.
Yes.
And they just built on each other so well, right? Arthur talked about
Yes.
the pilot lit in your own heart, in your own life.
Yes.
And then Jason kind of took it to the next level and said, hey, that fire needs to go across your culture and be,
Yes.
fueled in a healthy way, not throwing gasoline on it for like a quick burn or a quick burst,
Right.
but really just keeping that a slow, consistent burn like a bonfire. So I thought I was just like such a visual example that just built on itself so well.
I think so too. I mean, and again, man, it just goes back to that point we just talked about it, the power in multiple people, right? Like
Yeah.
being able to get the perspectives and different things.
Mhm.
It was very cool. And you mentioned the bonfire. Yeah, he gave the example. He was talking about watching the survival show. I'm trying to think of
Yes.
the Naked and Afraid, which was
Yes.
a funny joke all and for I've never watched that show, but I had to go and check out like a preview. I've seen a preview of
Yeah.
it. Oh, but it's like kinda like it reminds me of Survivor in a way or,
Yes.
and there's
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
there's another
There's some
survival
real
show that's
good
similar like
Alone.
that. Yeah.
Kendall,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
need to watch Alone if you haven't. It's so good. Anyway,
I
yes.
haven't seen it, but so you're the somebody else has told me that before too, so
We
maybe I
watch it
do
with
need
our
to add that to
kids.
my list.
So good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. But he talked about like the first thing they do when they're thrown into these impossible survival situations is that they always will make a fire because
Right.
there's so many benefits to it, right? It's gonna keep away any predators, it's gonna get the bugs away, it's gonna provide warmth, they can cook on
Mhm.
it. There's so many good things. But he's like, the thing is, you have to tend to that fire or all
Yes.
those benefits go away.
Right.
And I was like, okay, when we say the word burnout as a phrase, but it literally just gave me such a like a picture in my mind
Tangible. Mhm.
of yeah, of like, okay, like you literally Jess, you and I, we both like to go camping with our
Mhm.
families, right? Like we
Right.
know like that campfire, you have to tend to it. You gotta
Yep.
make sure that
Feed it.
it's
Yep.
right.
Feed the fire. Yep.
Yeah, you've gotta feed it. And so, it really, like, put this, image in my mind of, like, okay, this is what I have to do in my leadership. Like, you have to
Mm.
care for yourself, you have to care
Yeah.
for your team,
Right.
and when you do, it provides benefits to everyone who's around you, everyone who's
Right.
around that fire. So, I do wanna call out a couple things that Jason said in his talk, and the first was he was like, "Burnout is not a badge of honor."
Yeah.
That's the other
Amen.
thing. It's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you think like, "Okay, I'm gonna work super hard and I'm gonna go the extra mile." We almost are like, we feel like if we are super tired at the end of the day or we pulled more hours than anyone else, that, okay, like we earned our spot.
Mm.
And I just don't think that that is sustainable. It's
It's
not
not.
it's like, yes, you did, but like what is this something that's gonna allow you to go the distance in
Mhm.
ministry? Is it gonna allow
Yeah.
you to be healthy?
This is harder for some personality types than
Oh, yeah.
others. Like, we all know Kendall's like perfectionist. I like affirmation. That's where I slip is like I will do it for the recognition. Kendall will do it
Mm.
so that it's perfect, right? So like we have a hard time
To my own detriment, to my own,
exactly.
demise,
Same,
right? Like,
same. Like we just you it is a badge of honor in this like sad way of like, you know,
it just isn't
it's
sustainable.
just
Yeah,
not
it's not healthy.
sustainable. It's really not. That was like a huge check in my spirit for me. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
am I
it was
working
a good
unto the
reminder.
Lord? Is that the
Mm,
badge that I'm working for?"
it's the other thing too, it's like, we sometimes we think like, "Well, no one else is gonna do it, and it has to be right." And it's such a trap. It's such a cycle because the
Yes.
more you do that, the more you build it up in your head that like, okay, well, no one is gonna fix the chairs in the auditorium the way that I'm gonna get them done, right? No one is going to, get I mean, there's just a million ministry examples,
Yes.
but no one is gonna do it exactly the way that I will. And I think the thing that I took away from it is like, that's a good thing.
Right.
If people are gonna do it differently than you do,
Mm,
in time, if done right, and that's fostered and tended to,
right.
then man, it's gonna end up being better than even you can envision it.
Yes.
And that's, for the speaking to the perfectionist in me, there's just so much more power when we can finally get it into the hands of some other people
Yeah.
as well and collectively rise,
Right,
right?
right, right. Yeah, yeah. It has to be a team effort. The church is a body,
Yes.
right? And this is what I'm studying right now in my personal quiet time is like what does that actually look like? What does that
Mm,
actually mean? And it is
yeah,
depending on your size of church. Like if your church is absolutely massive, multi-campus, like it does become a little bit more difficult to release things because it's releasing
yeah,
what feels further away with less of your personal oversight. But as you've built leaders under you, as you've kind of scaled and discipled people up to the level that you can trust them, then that's so beautiful to watch them then go and build disciples. And then all of a sudden you are operating as a body, which is such a
yes.
cool concept and like absolutely biblical. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
pretty
and
cool.
and Jason, he talked about, okay, so like if you're getting other people involved and you want to care for your team and your staff and all these people, he talked about 4 different ways that you can do this. We won't
Hmm.
be able to cover all of them in this episode,
Hmm.
but 100% go and check out the full talk, and that's in session 2. So when you're pulling up the list, if you go to healthychurchsummit.com, you get the replay. Yeah, this Jason's talk was in session 2,
Yeah.
and but one of the things he said was that you want to add fuel to the fire when it
Mhm.
comes to the people who that are serving with you. And he gave some quick tips of ways that you can add fuel to the fire. And I want to jump through these really quickly. He said one thing you can do that's just going to um, really bring some encouragement, really keep people going and add to their own longevity in serving is that one thing you can do is call people by name. You can make
Mm.
people feel personal, right? That they're not just part of a cog in the wheel.
Yeah,
That when you call people by name and let them know, and what I'm hearing on that is build that relationship, with
100%.
people. Let them know that they're not just part of the process; that they
Right.
are part of this ministry with you, and it
Yes.
could go a long way.
Yes, part of the
Another way he
body.
said is to show gratitude. Sometimes like we legitimately can get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of Sunday morning that we forget to slow down enough to just tell people a simple thank you.
Mhm.
And I can tell you this, there is a thank you goes so far when you give it to an entire group of people. I think
Right.
about a lot of times on Sundays, I get up and I speak before like rally. We do a team rally. So I've got,
Sure.
30 people standing around me in a circle. And I think there's a certain level of a thank you to everyone.
Mhm.
And then there's the level of going to someone individually and saying, Jess, thank you so much for serving in the nursery this morning. You don't
Right.
know how big of a difference. I saw that you went the extra mile when you
That's what I was
did
gonna say.
this.
Yes. Yes. See them. And you don't have to do this for everybody every day, but, like,
That's right.
make this a goal. Like, maybe I'm gonna call out 2 specific people, have eyes to
Yes.
see something, God will show it to you, and then take a minute to, like, look them in the eye, shake their
Yes.
hand. "Hey, I saw you do this. It was awesome. Thank you for doing that."
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you can celebrate those specific contributions,
Mhm.
it here's people I'm trying to think of there's a clever way of saying this, but it's like what you celebrate is what they will replicate, I think is
Mhm.
the way that the phrase goes.
It
But like
rhymes.
if you have rhymes, so it must be right, right? But basically, like, yeah, if you saw someone do something that maybe you didn't even wasn't a part of the process or something like that, but or even like if I get hung up on this all the time because it's like such a small thing for our guest experience team. But we always make sure that when we stand at the front doors, that we open the door for each of our guests when they come in.
Right,
It's a
yeah.
way, it's just a small way when they come in to let them know that like we're here to serve you. It's
Yes.
small, it's like unspoken, it's just like an easy way, an easy win.
Yeah.
But when you see someone who's doing that without being asked,
Yeah.
go and you celebrate that, right? Like you
Yes.
call out, man, I see that you guys are on it this morning for
Right.
opening the doors for all
Right.
of our people when they
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah. I
But
tell my kids that, like, when they do something above and beyond, I'm like, "Thank you for
yes,
having eyes to see the need and filling it." And I think
and
that's
filling it.
just, like, then they're like, "Oh, that's a thing that I do. That's a thing that I just
Right.
did." And they associate that with, like, "What else can I have eyes to see
That's
and
right.
fill a need?" Yeah.
Any way that you can help your volunteers,
Mhm.
your staff, your teams to just feel seen, that like
Mhm.
what they're doing actually matters.
Yeah.
We talked about the perfectionist in me, Jess, you talking about, loving that affirmation.
Yeah.
These are just human responses, right? Like, and every personality is different.
Right.
But people want to know that they're making a difference. And so
Yes.
all of these little things, they're small, but they can help even your people. to keep
Mhm.
from getting burnout and keep
Yes.
showing up week to week, right?
Mhm.
Another thing that he said that you can do is that you've gotta protect that fire. And he
Mm.
shared some different ways that you can protect your fire in yourself and then also in your people. And one of the
Mhm.
ways that I wanna call out first is that he said you should normalize rest.
Right.
Now, this is the exact opposite of earning that badge for being the overachiever or the, do everything person, right?
Right.
When we normalize rest, we say that this is something that ought to be a part of what you're doing. That Sabbath is important. It's almost as like that's a principle that we get from scripture, right?
I mean, yeah, something like that. I feel pretty sure
Some
it's like a obligatory.
Yeah, we forget it so often, but I think what Jason shared with us was he was like, "I used to think that you had to earn rest."
Mm.
When really rest is something that should come natural. It should be a part of our regular rhythm
Yeah.
if we're going to be able to operate, in an optimal way, right?
Right.
If we're going to be able to carry on in ministry and do things, this is something that you have to earn.
Right.
This is something that you need to build in. That
Mm.
means days off. That means that as much as we may want that volunteer every Sunday, it's not sustainable. It's not
No.
they've got to have a break for
Mhm.
leaders, right? That there's got to be if you're a preacher, if you're the guy that goes and you speak every Sunday morning, like come on, like you gotta pull in the guy, you gotta pull in the person that's going to come in and be able to be that guest speaker or someone from your
Right.
team that can fill in, build
Yes.
in those days that you can get a little bit of rest.
Yeah.
Only you know your context,
Right.
but yeah, find some ways in your role to build in that rest.
I think this is a great opportunity too to just plug tools. I mean,
Oh
I think
yes,
for we already talked about scheduling time on, right, from Pastor
hmm
Arthur's talk. But
yes,
this I think is like where technology can really shine for this,
yes,
especially for your team and the culture of your team. If you're not scheduling in time
mm,
for them to rest. And if that just looks like I'm not scheduling them, then you are. You're being intentional
mm,
about scheduling time for them to rest. Communicate that. Hey, we're
yes,
going to have you here every other week. We need you, but more
yes,
importantly, we need you to have your cup filled. And so
that's
when
right.
you're off, feel off. If you see us in the chat, like so and so sick, they can't make it anymore. Take a quick self evaluation before you jump in and be the hero and say, oh, I can come in and help.
Yes,
We would love for you to
that's
help,
right.
but is that really best for you? Is that really best for your time here? I think making sure that your volunteers and your team know that this is culturally very important and something that you should be prioritizing. And you can show them that by example by scheduling it in through whatever
That's
tool
right.
you use for your volunteer scheduling.
That's such a great thing, and yes, being able to have those things, I think of like blocks for, vacation time, being able to
Mhm.
have those times when, you like scheduling every other week, and you
Yeah.
can build those into your rhythm, your cadence that you have, and so great call out for, you know, just building that in
Hmm.
to your software from the start. It's that,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we're not going to overcommit or allow them to overcommit.
Yeah.
Uh, Another principle that he shared in ways that that you can protect the fire is to share responsibility.
Yeah.
I thought this was really good because I feel like again, sometimes as ministry leaders, it's very easy to have a long list of things that have to get done or tasks that have to be completed or areas that have to be maintained, but we just like it always ends up falling to you.
Mhm.
And I love that he shared the principle of okay, we're not going to just tell you that, okay, you're supposed to serve on this day and that's it. But also share a little bit of that ownership with
Mhm.
people. Like,
Right.
hey, like this is our house. Like this church is like a shared space between
Yes,
us.
exactly.
Like, listen, if you see, I mean, I tell my kids all the time, like, it doesn't take me to pick up a piece of trash that's laying over there. If you see a piece of trash that's laying in the floor, like, this is your home.
Mhm.
Come on, like, step in, like, pick that thing up, throw it in the trash. Don't,
Yes.
if you see something, it does, this is a shared
Right.
responsibility.
Right.
And I
Right.
feel like
Right.
that carries over. I feel like I'm preaching about my kids, but this is this is something that applies in church as well. It can apply to
100%.
areas. Let it be a team effort,
Yeah.
right? Don't let it
Yeah.
all fall on you.
Yeah, and just this is all cultural. Like, all
Mm,
of this should be the expectation already set
Yes.
when people come onto your team. It shouldn't be, Kendall, we're in like a teaching season with our kids. They're like trying to figure out how to
Right.
be
Sure.
a functioning, healthy human. So it's a little different with our kids because we're like, hey, bud, like you look around. Is there things that you can do to help mom? You want to be mommy's big helper? My kids are too old for that. But at the church, that should be something that when they're walking through the doors, like, this is your home. That should
Yes.
be part of the culture and part of the feeling. And in the same way that you belong here, you
Yes.
also belong to part of maintaining this awesome place,
Yes.
right? So
That's
even as
right.
guests, like a lot of times when I go somewhere for the first time, if I'm going to like a class party or something where I don't know all the moms real well and I walk in the door, or,
Yeah.
if you go to a ministry gathering, even with volunteers, like I don't always, my first thing is like, where can I be put to work? I'm not
Yeah.
good at small talk at all. Like we're not going to talk about the weather. I'm usually like, how's your heart? That's usually, hi,
Yeah.
I'm Jess. How's your heart?
How's your
So
heart?
I'm not good at that. And so I think too, that it should be part of the culture is just like people walk in and they're starting to volunteer with you or whatever, like, hey, we're all in this together. This is not going to
Yeah.
be a team leader response. Here's what the expectation is from you
Yeah.
because you're family, because you should be
Yes.
comfortable here. So I just look for a job when I walk in because that's generally what I do as a default. And yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
and I'll call this out is that not everyone feels the freedom. They don't sometimes they feel like they don't have permission.
Yeah,
I think about people who are newer to your church,
right.
people who are, volunteers, like they may see something, but they may
Mhm.
say, well, I see it, but I don't know that I'm qualified to be the person
Yes.
to step
Great
in.
point, great
And it
point.
leads into the last thing I want to share from Jason is that he says to build leaders, don't
Right.
just fill roles.
Mhm.
I feel like so much of that comes back to again that shared responsibility.
Yes.
Letting them know that like, hey, we're all chipping in here. We're all
Yeah.
trying to make this better.
Right.
I even think, just a small example of, it's funny to say the piece of trash, anyone can pick that up and make the place better. But I even think of a couple of weeks ago, we had someone who showed up to our church for the first time, had never been there before, their first time guest. They did not self identify by stopping at the first time guest tent.
Okay.
I saw one of our leaders who was not serving, not scheduled to serve that day, who normally is a lot of times out there at serving at that first time guest tent,
Mhm.
identified that person. I've never met them before. Pull them aside and say,
Oh,
"Hey, I don't think I recognize you. How long have you been coming to our church?" "Oh,
yeah.
it's your first time."
Right.
Introduce themselves. "Can I show you around?" Literally the things that they do when they're scheduled to serve at that first
Mhm.
time guest tent. But it was a shared responsibility.
Right.
They weren't told to
So
do it.
good.
It was not their day to be that person,
Mm.
but they saw that person, they saw the need, and they went and met it. It comes from when you can give people permission,
Right.
build them into these leaders,
Yes.
not just like, fill out your checklist. It
Sure.
goes beyond a checklist
Yes.
into, being able to do it. So
Yeah.
I
So good.
I like to think that when you do that, when you give them permission, that it's more fulfilling for them, that it
It
does
is.
kinda help with that burnout because at the end of the day, I just don't know that people like to fill out a checklist. I
Right.
think they wanna know that they're making a difference.
Yeah. Well, and this is where too, not to spend any time on this, but like understanding or providing opportunity for people to kind of identify their gifts, right? Their
Mm.
spiritual gifts or even their
Yep,
like social
yep.
giftings. Like that person probably did that because they're naturally extroverted. They're naturally have
Yeah,
eyes to see
right.
people, right? Like
That's right.
that takes a little bit of it's not instructional. They're not forced outside of their comfort zone on a regular Sunday morning when they are serving. So that when they're not serving anymore, this is part of who they are, right? And so
That's right.
I think being able to understand your leaders, right? To
Yes.
then put them in the role, not the other way
Yeah,
around.
that's
But yeah,
good.
no, I think that was all of it was so encouraging.
I love the simple phrasing that Jason Young says. He says, "To build a ministry where people don't burn out, that they can burn bright."
That's right.
That they can have that passion, they can have that energy, that they can use those giftings, as you just said,
Mhm.
to do something significant and keep that fire lit and tend to that fire and protect that fire, all these good things.
Yeah.
There's so much more from Jason. I would just encourage, if any of that is just standing out to you as a listener today, go and check out that full talk because it was
Mhm.
so good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, we're just we have so much. I feel like we could talk for 3 hours about
I
this,
know,
Kendall.
I'm telling you. Yeah, yeah, and, it's just so good. I hope for these leaders that they will go and they'll take a time, it's really easy, digestible content. It's easy to
Yeah.
throw it on in the background when you're washing dishes or mowing the lawn or whatever,
Yep.
whenever you're in picking up your kids in the car line, whatever it may be. Go and check out that content. It's so valuable. And we even had breakouts. We had more
Right.
breakouts at this
Yes.
event than we have
Double the
ever had,
breakouts.
double the
Yes.
amount of breakouts, which is pretty amazing.
Yes.
I want to quickly just touch on what those were because
Mhm.
each of them, they just brought so much value. We had
Mm.
a breakout that was talking about less busy work, more ministry, how to leverage
Mm.
technology to lighten the load. And that was from one of our CAB members, one of our client advisory board members, Angela Hill Gowdy. She brought so much energy and she's so fun,
She's
right? Like,
so fun. She's hilarious. She gave some really cool examples of ways that she is actually
yes,
using the workflows in our CHMS and our forms to, like I mean, they
I,
go anyway, I don't
it
wanna
was
say it.
it
I don't
was
wanna
I don't
Yeah,
want to spoil it either. I
yeah,
want them to go hear it. But I love when people take the technology that we have and they get creative with it. And
yeah.
that is something that I feel like just comes so naturally to her. She
It
gave
was
some
enough
great tips.
Yeah, it was enough for me to high five her on stage. I was like,
Yes.
"What? This is
Yeah, yeah.
amazing."
She
I'm
so
so
she we
excited.
had an interview with her on stage in session 1, so go
Yeah,
check that out. But then also she has a whole breakout where she expanded on that, which
yeah,
was just so good.
yeah. It was great.
One of our good friends that's been on the podcast, Dennis Choi, he led a
Mhm.
breakout called "How to Keep a Volunteer for Life."
Mm,
100% that content is just so good. And if you are trying to develop those volunteers in this season, I mean, it's
mm.
content that is
Yeah.
30 minutes
I was
well
gonna say,
spent.
these breakouts are only 30 minutes, so pack a big punch.
We also had we had one that was called "Cultivating a Culture of Generosity in Your Church"
Mhm.
from Nicole White, who's on our team at
Right.
Ministry Brands.
Yes.
And that was just fun because we kind of got to break down some of the ways that, the stats that we're seeing in the research from giving these days in
Mhm.
2026. And so that one was super powerful as well.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. She's funny too.
I forget that she was on the podcast. That was just a few episodes ago
Yeah.
that she was able to share with us, and so that
Mhm.
was that was a really good one. We had Laura Howe, who has been on our podcast before. You're seeing a recurring theme with
Yes.
these people who have been on the show, but she had a great breakout on prioritizing mental
Mm.
health
It
and
was so
ministry.
good. It was so good.
Yeah, that was the content on that. I mean, it's just very valuable in this season.
It's
Another,
validating.
mm, you're right. It is, and I feel like it just shows, like, this is something that we need to be thinking about. These
Yeah.
ministry leaders, these are
Proactive.
topics that really matter.
Yes.
Nicole Lucas. So we got 2 Nicoles, don't be confused by that. Nicole Lucas, she led one called "Leading Healthy Staff and Volunteer Teams with Clarity." Clarity is a big theme that is like a part of her brand,
Yeah.
that you'll see as because she does a lot of coaching and things like that. And so if you're
Mhm.
trying to bring some clarity to your teams and your staff, that's a super good one. We
Yes.
also had 2 guys, one Wes Herms, who's from Avid Exchange, and also he led a breakout with Jonathan Howe, who,
Mhm.
um, he's from serves on the Ministry Brands team. Is just he has such a heart for the financial side of churches and accounting,
Yeah.
things that just, like, make my head spin
Same.
is the things that he loves the most. And
Yeah.
so, like, if you're an administrator or you serve in some kind of financial role in your church, um, their breakout on healthy accounting systems was a really good one to check out.
Mhm.
And then finally, I want to share that we had our very own Kira Brown. Not only did she join us up on stage,
Yeah.
but she shared some brand new tech with us. So some brand new tools that are coming out from Ministry Brands, as a part of Ministry Brands Amplify. So she led a breakout. Spoiler alert: it's AI related, and so
Mhm.
she led a breakout talking all about how you can use Amplify in your church without losing the human touch,
Right, yes.
which that was a very popular breakout. There
It
was a
was.
large attendance in
It
that one, and
was.
so I would definitely recommend going and checking that one out. I'm out of breath, Jess, just going through all these breakouts. We had so many, but they were all so good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said at the very beginning of this episode, I think as far as content is concerned, you know, we've done a lot of these. I think this one, for me personally, hit on a different spiritual level than we have in the
Mhm.
past. I think there was
Yes.
just so much truth that was spoken and
Yeah.
so much encouragement. So, I mean, looking back on the chat and everything, while Kendall and I are hosting, we're obviously not able to engage much with that. But going back and looking, I mean, the feedback,
Yes.
the conversations between leaders in the chat who were attending,
Yes.
all of it made for such a powerful, encouraging experience. I know that it's life-giving to me, it's life-giving to Kendall because we genuinely care so much about the
Yes.
people that we serve, the leaders that we serve, and so overall, it was wonderful. Kendall did such a great job really putting so much of this together, and
Thank
yeah,
you. I
it
appreciate
was
that and appreciate all your help. That's
yeah,
not
a
it
lot of
definitely is
work.
there's a lot of other people behind the
Yes,
scenes making
so
all this
much work
happen.
behind the scenes.
Yes.
So, thank you to everyone on our team that
Yes.
poured, blood, sweat, and tears into this event, and then to everyone who attended. Please go check these out. We do this for you guys. So,
That's right.
would love to hear from you about what you liked and what you enjoyed. Leave a comment on on the YouTube pages when you're checking those out. We'd love to hear what you thought about it. You can
Yes.
also email us, and just let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. As a reminder, you can go and check out all of this. It's absolutely free.
Mhm.
Share it with your team, share it with some ministry leaders. It's all at healthychurchsummit.com. You can view all of the sessions, all of the breakouts, all of
Mhm.
the interviews, all of the great stuff. And so definitely go and to check that out. And for today, I think that about wraps it up for this episode, Jess.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on here, for
Yeah.
talking through this. Thank you for being a part of the Healthy Church Summit. That was a great event.
It was great.
And for everyone who's listening at home, keep leading well. And we'll see you right back here next week on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.